Hi to everyone, this is Rosy Orozco from Mexico City. In my country, we have 13,000 children last year traveling by themselves. Some of them, from 10 years to 14, are taken to sexual exploitation. Some others are taken for labor exploitation in some of the fields where they are forced to work without any payment, or some are taken by the organized crime. They are vulnerable also because there is poverty, lack of education, there is addictions at home or violence. So they want an opportunity and they are vulnerable because they are children and because they are by themselves. Some organizations, we work also with victims. Victims that are taken by pimps, some are fall in love with them, some others are kidnapped, some are also deceived by a false job advertisement. Even children as young as 16 years old, we have known that by newspapers or false people who will deceive them will go to another city to go and work because they need the money desperate. So the people who commit this crime, who traffic these people, these beautiful children, are people who are well trained. In Mexico, we have a state called Tlaxcala, where there is beautiful people and a lot of people who works hard. There is some that are worldwide known because they are trained to become pimps, to become criminals who will take these children even to the United States, Canada, or Europe for being sexual slaves. Some of the girls that we have received in one of the shelters that has been as young as 6 years old, a girl from Guatemala whose father murdered her mother with a machete, and she was taken by the father from Guatemala to Cancun, and she was sold as a sexual slave at that age. She arrived to the shelter as a girl that had no voice at all. She didn't speak at all. She cried all the time. She had horrible nightmares. And this girl now, she is 12 years old, and her dream is to have a family. She is now completely restored. It has taken more than 5 years to help her to overcome. Some of the girls that arrive, there is another girl that in my book, From Heaven to Hell in One Day, this girl, and you can find the book in my webpage, unidoshacemosladiferancia.com, and it's in English too. There is one of these girls, her name was Claudia. She arrived when she was 12 years old. Some arrives to the shelters very aggressive. She hated everybody. She was taken from a pimp who deceived her after she was very in love, 12 years old. She was taken to another state, to Puebla, and was raped even by the police. 30 people from the police will enter to the hotel. She will have false ID, and she will be even raped by the police in uniform. She didn't trust anybody. She was really mad at everybody. And she was 16 when a client who was paying for her service will not rape her or touch her, but will tell her, "You are very valuable. You have to go out." At that age, she already had a girl who was taken from the family of the pimp. And when she arrived to the shelter, she even wanted to kill her own daughter. She wanted to beat the lawyer who was helping her, and she was so aggressive. Other girls will arrive like the first one, very depressed. They don't want to leave. They don't want to denounce. They don't want anything. They feel they don't have a life. Their project of life is completely broken. So the first thing in this shelter that has a model that was made with USAID from the United States, it's an agency that worked with this shelter to have a special model for this shelter. And the first thing that girls do is a book of dreams. They start to have a life project. They start to write and to put some pictures and cut from magazines, some of the things they like, and we help them to start to dream again. They have these white pages, they don't want anything at the beginning, but they start to put, well, I would like to have a family, I would like to marry one day, and it takes a lot of time for them to dream again. But they dream. They dream about a future, and I think this is an important key for a victim, not only to become a survivor, but to go more than that, to become somebody that will have answers for others that also are victims. Now, some of the girls that arrived 5 years ago, 4 years ago, are studying in university. We have some girls that dream about, one of them wants to be the mayor of one of these little cities in Tlaxcala, where there are so many pimps. And she wants to become the mayor to become the answer for her town, to change that mentality where families will educate the boys to become pimps and girls to become girls that will be sex slaves, even from their own brothers. Some of these people take a lot of victims to Queens, to places in the United States like the city of Astoria or Corona that are near Queens. And there is a lot of people from this little town in Tlaxcala and some others that are around that will go as far as there and to have this horrible crime as having girls from the most vulnerable places in Mexico, like Oaxaca, Chiapas, that has a lot of indigents.
I could get off a number 7 train on my way to watch the New York Mets. A few stops before, and that's an entire Latin community. It's like we're in a third world country. Nobody speaks English there. And there are men downstairs, and immediately as we get to the street, they're giving us these cards with pictures of blonde-haired, blue-eyed women on it. And they're talking about doing massages and taking care of your health and your medical needs. Now, there's not one of those girls who looks blonde-haired and blue-eyed. They're all from Latin America, Central America. They're all short, dark hair, dark eyes. But it's all a ruse, and it has a number that you call.
Some of the victims that are kidnapped and taken to other states, this happens with the trailers. There is a lot of trafficking in the big trucks and trailers that take food or takes some objects to other states or even to the United States. And some of these people who are drivers take girls from near the road, from towns that are very poor, like 2 cousins that we met. This story is really one of the stories that has broke my heart. These 2 girls were 14 years old, and one of them was raped the first day 23 times. They are from a town that is very poor, and the parents are the father is deaf and dumb, and the mother studied only 3 years. They, as any father, as any mother, when the girl didn't arrive, started to look for her all over the world. They didn't have money, and the little things they had, they sold them. They borrowed money from neighbors, family, and 3 months, their father even looked for her in the bars where he saw in Morelos, he saw in one of our states how older men will be having in their lap girls as young as her daughter. He will go, try to see the face of the girl if it was her daughter, and he would go like that from state to state, spending all the money he didn't have and looking for her own daughter. The little girl, 14 years old, she saw how another girl, 8 years old, was raped. Also 23 more men. It was like a ritual when they arrive, rape her. But this girl one day tried to escape. The 8-year-old was beaten until she was dead. They showed the newspaper how she was found in pieces in one of the faraway places in that little town. Then she tried to escape in this town that is called Santiago Acosac, Puebla. And the police in that state took her back to the pimps. This happens not only in Mexico. My friend Sophie Hayes from UK was also trafficked to Italy. And also, the police would go and humiliate her. And that was the way that the pimps will tell her, you know, even if you go to the police will not help you. The day that she tried to denounce, Sophie Hayes found that the police was beside the pimp.
When I got back to the UK, I didn't tell anyone what had happened to me because I didn't know myself what had happened. I didn't know it was called human trafficking. My mum spoke to the police and I managed to speak to someone from the unit that specialises with human trafficking, and he explained to me what had happened. I gave Interpol, Europol information of him, what he'd done, and they did nothing. The authorities didn't really know what to do with me because people don't generally get trafficked out of the UK. So there was no help. I was told, just walk away and rebuild your life and try to forget about what happened.
This happens in many places in the world. Children like Claudia in my book, From Heaven to Hell, also learn that the pimp will know the people from the Attorney General. He will go saying hello to all these people. So this girl who was taken away again, she was taken again back with the pimp by the same police. She was not wanting to escape anymore. But her best friend, 17 years old, died also. She was beaten to death also. And then is when she decided again to escape and succeed to rescue her cousin and some other girls. Believe it or not, all the other children that were rescued, we don't know where they are. We don't know what the authorities did with the others. We have asked so many people, where are the other girls that were rescued? Because to leave them like without help, is some of them will commit suicide. Some of them will be so mad that will become also criminals. Some wants to kill, some wants to drug until they die, some wants to sell drugs because they need the money for their own drugs. And to leave them like that is criminal. Every victim is a human being. And one human being, like the Talmud says, to save a life is to save a whole world. And we have learned that from the girls that we have met in the shelter. Each one of them is a whole world. It's a girl who has dreams, who has so many gifts to really do and bless the world with their attitude, with their knowledge, with their talent. And each one of the ones we have met and we have helped in this shelter has become great women who last year were two of them in England, in London. One has been in Israel, and some others has been in the United States. And many of them has traveled to many cities in Mexico. They are becoming activists. They are becoming great leaders that will surprise the world. It is very important to work with the pimps, with the traffickers, because in Mexico, these little towns that are in Tlaxcala, there is 23 of these cities where families will educate their children to become pimps, to become traffickers, to have sexual slaves. Some will be their own sisters or neighbors, but they mostly, thousands of them, will go to other places in Mexico, especially where there is more poverty, where there is lack of education, where there is people with addictions, but especially girls that are naive, girls that are innocent, and they will go and take them to traffic them as children to even other cities. They will go as far as Queens, where there are two cities, Corona and Astoria, and there is a lot of people from Tlaxcala that has taken a lot of indigents. I have been working because of the girls that we have had in the shelters with their pimps. And it's so important for the restoration of the victims. We have been months visiting pimps until they decide to change, until they decide to ask for forgiveness, until we work with the victim and with the trafficker. And one of them already sat down, victim and the trafficker. In the jail, he said, "Please, Marcela, forgive me." His name in the book, From Heaven to Hell in One Day, is Pedro. It's the story of Marcela. It's there in the webpage in English. And Pedro will ask Marcela, "Please forgive me." Marcela will be able to say in his face, "Why, Pedro? Why did you do this?" And will explain very clear how did she felt, all the things she wanted to tell him. Of course, she was not bitter anymore. She was been 5 years working with psychologists, with people who helped her. And the act of him asking forgiveness and her to release him and say, "Yes, I forgive you," has been such a way to change the culture, even from the pimp, from the trafficker. He is now working with us to write a book. He wants to go out from jail to explain to all the people in Tlaxcala how bad it is to become a trafficker. He says now that he never had peace in his heart, that he was not satisfied, that he earned a lot of money, but he felt miserable. And now he decides that when he goes out of jail, he will work to help other children in Tlaxcala not to become traffickers. And there is now 3 pimps like that. We still are working to visit more of these pimps. In Mexico, we have 93 convictions for human trafficking. Most of them has been children. In the shelter, we have helped 152 children that has been human trafficked, especially sexual slaves. And some of these girls, like 3 that recently arrived, are dumb and theft. That is the most vulnerable of the vulnerable. And we dream on taking them to be very successful. First of all, the model that we work with USAID is a model that takes them to a special house that is a beautiful house. We can say it's a luxurious house because girls were thinking they were trash, they were not valuable, and they arrived to a home that is not only clean but beautiful. And they find they are very valuable for all of us. We have worked in a special law that works in Mexico. It's a general law. When I started to work with human trafficking victims, I noticed that we didn't have a law. I was not a politician, but I succeeded in entering to the Congress. I was a Congress lady, and I work with other friends to have a very successful law that now it is a law that rules over all Mexico, that punish human trafficking from 2 years to 40, and all the change of exploitation is punished. And this helps us to work, especially since the operation, since the investigation. We have to know if there is indigence, and we have to take care that from the first minute that somebody is in touch with them, they understand that these girls, especially the sexual slaves, they don't want to live. They are very depressed or aggressive. They are very special because they have been taking away all their humanity, all their dignity, what makes them feel human. They feel they are things, they are trash. So since the investigation, we find out if we need somebody to translate to their own language. And since the operation, we will be so careful with the self-esteem. After the operation, the authorities will take them to shelters. There is only 4 shelters in Mexico that are with an specialty for human trafficking. 3 of them in Mexico City, 1 in Tijuana, Baja California. And they work very similar, and they will take care of their self-esteem. Of course, there are doctors, there are psychologists, there are teachers that are full-time teachers, because some will arrive without no education or lack of papers. So we will have school inside the house. And it's a house that makes them feel in a family, makes them feel that they are part of a family. They will have a lot of activities, of course, and little by little, they will be working in their book of dreams, like I was explaining, until they have dreams. And all the people that are around, we will be sure that they will achieve their dreams. We have a girl that in the book is Marcela, and she's now studying in the best university for law. And she is also dreaming of become a Congress lady. And I'm sure she's going to get there, because a lot of people from media has met her, has been very impressed by her testimony and the way she has been fighting to become an activist. There is a lot of the girls that now are over 18, and they have become people who wants to fight against human trafficking. There is a girl who wants to be a police. There are 2 that are already businesswomen, 2 that has opened their own beauty parlor. There are some, the one in my book that was called Anita, she was sold in the newspapers. She was a human trafficking girl who was an orphan whose pimps will sell her in a newspaper. And when she became survivor, and she went to the Congress and said the name of the national papers where she was being sold, it was a shock in Mexico. Now she's studying communications, and she wants to be part of the answer to help others not to be human traffic victims. Then we have some others that one wants to become mayor of her city, some others that wants to help the others to open their own business. There is one that is studying business administration. And I think that also we have to do the same with the traffickers. Some of the traffickers are starting to write their own book of dreams. With this new law, we have had many denounces. We have now these convictions in our country, 93, but it's not enough. We have a dream because we see that in England, after William Wilberforce, we see how it became a prosperous country. Also in the United States, after Abraham Lincoln abolished the slavery, and of course, Martin Luther King started a big movement against discrimination. Then, after them, become a prosperous country. There is no prosperity where there is slavery. And children cannot be trafficked. Children cannot be slaves in any country. If we succeed in fighting against this crime, we will have a change in our country. We have a dream, like Martin Luther King one day said. We have a dream for Mexico. We have the dream to close all the places where there is exploitation, where there is slavery, where children are being humiliated and their dignity, their humanity is taken away. We have the dream to close those places and to take children by the hand and to take them to be successful people in the world, to be part of the solution, that they will study professional careers, that they will open their own business, that they will be successful, to say to the world that slavery is the worst crime and no one has to be slave in any part of the world. We believe children are our most important treasure in our country. Each life of them, it's a whole world. And we will fight until the end to have them safe and with freedom. We don't want any more slavery, and we don't want any foreigner to come to our country where our children are being held as slaves to rape them. We don't want that kind of tourism. We want the respect of all the world to our children.
Gracias a Fundación Reintegra, hoy estoy cumpliendo uno de mis sueños. Estoy estudiando Derecho porque sé que puedo ayudar a litigar o a defender a muchas víctimas sobrevivientes del delito de trata.
Fundación Reintegra empezó a ayudarme para que yo pudiera continuar mis sueños y poder reintegrarme a la sociedad. Estoy entrenando porque me estoy preparando para correr un maratón. Esto es porque se está promoviendo la lucha contra la trata de personas y yo estoy apoyando en ello. Por cada kilómetro recorrido se va a aportar una cantidad para apoyar a lo que es Fundación Reintegra y Fundación Camino a Casa.
Primero, cuando son menores de edad, llegan a un refugio que se llama Fundación Camino a Casa, en donde tienen un proceso de sanación. Y cuando se acaba el programa Fundación Camino a Casa por razón de la edad, Fundación Reintegra les da la oportunidad de seguir adelante con un proyecto de vida. El éxito de Reintegra pues es ver a esas personas antes que nada seguras, libres, felices, realizadas. Tenemos casos de jóvenes que están en la preparatoria, que están en la universidad. Hay una joven que está estudiando la carrera de Derecho, otra la carrera de Administración, otra quiere estudiar Enfermería. En fin, el plan depende de cada persona, de cada sueño que tenga cada una. Nosotros nos encargamos de darle forma y sentido a ese sueño, a ese anhelo.
Gracias a ellos estoy comenzando a tener una vida mejor. Voy a estudiar de gastronomía.
Voy a entrar a la universidad y voy a estudiar una carrera de enfermería. Entonces yo quiero hacer la diferencia en el hospital.
Gracias a Dios terminé la secundaria. Apenas inicié la preparatoria, estoy estudiando inglés.
Para mí Fundación Reintegra es como mi casa, como mi familia. Me está apoyando para poder reintegrarme a la sociedad, para seguir estudiando, para que yo el día de mañana pueda yo tener un negocio, poder tener una carrera profesional y pueda continuar mi vida como una persona normal.
Estoy muy agradecida con Fundación Reintegra y con todos los que colaboran aquí. Son y es mi familia.